All right, Jeff with Junkluggers. Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it. How you been?
Been doing well.
Yeah.
Just plugging away, ramping up for the summer.
Same old, same old.
Yes, sir.
So let's start by just giving us a little bit of background on just kind of your professional career and how you got here, how you got into the home service area, owning your own business. Everybody has similar but such different stories. I always like to start there. We can kind of go from there.
Sure. I started out in consulting primarily with budgeting and forecasting software systems, and with one of the big four, big five accounting firms.
Nice.
And then landed in the Nashville area, working in corporate America. Continued, I managed financials for IT, and then ended up going back to software and managing budgeting and forecasting software for a large company here in the Nashville area. And then they decided to catch up with the rest of corporate America and offshore about a third of corporate IT. So then I was faced with an opportunity to figure out what do I want to do next. And always wanted to have my own business. So then it was a matter of what do I want to do. I looked at a number of different existing businesses, new businesses, franchises. And one of the things that stuck out to me about Junkluggers and kept coming back to me is I like helping people. And this particular model allows me to help people on the front side of things. It could be as simple as, hey, we've got new furniture coming in and the old stuff has to go and we don't have the means or the knowledge to know what to do with it. But it also may be a scenario where a loved one has passed away and the family's trying to get everything cleared out of the house so they can sell the house and settle the estate and that sort of thing. Those are the situations where we can shine because they're already overwhelmed with everything else they have going on. But then with the Junkluggers brand, our first priority is to give back to the community. And so we want to donate as many items as we can through our nonprofit partners. And so we get to help the community that way. Our second priority is trying to recycle, repurpose, or rehome things as much as we can so we can minimize what goes in our landfills and try to help our environment. So we get to help out the community that way. But then another thing that was core for me is I wanted to make sure that my guys can be taken care of. And some of the other businesses I looked at with very similar wage rates, I just couldn't see how else to get the guys paid. And yet a lot of our customers are gracious and give nice tips. And then every now and then we're able to help the guys out with some free stuff if it's something we can't get donated, or if the customer has said outright, we're not concerned about it going to a nonprofit organization. And so if your guys can benefit from it, by all means. And so I love that, and so that kind of touched on everything for me of being able to help customers, being able to help the community, and being able to help my guys as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure that took a lot of kind of research, especially if you're looking at the franchise world. So let's go back to, I find it so interesting that you were corporate all the way, probably company man, and then junk removal. Was that a hard transition? And thinking about talking directly to the future business owner, maybe the guy who's 10 years below you, who's thinking about doing that. Was that a hard decision because of expectations, just societal expectations on you and your previous career, family, money? What was the big, like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and dive head first into this?
So I ended up working with a franchise consultant to get exposed to some of the different options out there. And one of the questions he asked is kind of along the lines of part of what you're asking is, if I'm in a social gathering, am I going to have a problem letting people know that I own a junk removal business?
Right.
That's not something that bothers me. I came up doing dishwashing and working in warehouses and all that kind of stuff as a high school student, and so none of that bothers me. It doesn't faze me. I'm not concerned from a pride standpoint. I'm more excited about the opportunity to own a successful business and to do well with it and to have a good crew. So from that standpoint, not bothered. Leaving corporate America where you've got benefits and you've got a steady paycheck and that sort of thing, and going into something where it's all unknown and you may not get a check at all, right, and you may not have benefits at all, that's a big leap. And more so, that was probably the biggest challenge for me than shifting the nature of the kind of work that we were doing.
Right on. That's so cool to hear, dude, because one of the reasons why we're even having these conversations, a big reason why I'm developing my home, is because I fell in love with the home service industry and the business owners that are within that industry, because outside looking in, it's the exact opposite of what you would expect or what you're told or what society thinks. It's these super intelligent business owners that have poured over the opportunity from a business standpoint, but also clearly have put a lot of other thought into why they want to be in the industry they want to be in. So it's something that I think just people need to be aware of. It's like, the plumber's not the guy with his ass hanging out anymore. It's just like not a thing. Right, exactly. Yeah, if you're hiring off of the MyHome platform, he's not for sure. But that's really what we're trying to expose is like, people need to know that behind these successful home service businesses are incredible operators that have put significant thought, heart, attention, time, sweat into making that happen. I think sometimes people just think it's like, oh yeah, I mean, they're picking up couches or they're fixing a plumber or they're like us, they're doing restoration, great. But it's so that's like this bit of it, right? It's all this other stuff that creates it.
Yeah.
So kudos to you on that, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell me about your team. So if someone were to find you on the MyHome platform, what's the experience? What can they expect when they have, hey, I have a couch I need to come get picked up? What can they expect?
Yeah, so first of all of our folks are background checked, fully insured. So I make sure that we don't have any concerns there. If there's a mishap, that we're going to get it taken care of, and I want to, the homeowners to know that as well. And then I hire for folks who are going to be concerned about the customer experience, not just looking for somebody that has muscles and they can lift things.
Nice.
And then I am regularly kind of checking with the guys, doing ride-alongs, doing training for the new guys to make sure that we're doing things the right way. Communication is key for us, and so we always, nearly always, call our customers as soon as we're headed their direction to give them an update on the ETA. All of our appointments are a 2-hour arrival window, but just like anybody else, if somebody can give us a more accurate time of when they expect to arrive, we want to know that, so we try to provide that for our customers.
Right.
And then when the guys show up on site, they have the customer walk them through, show them everything they want removed, and then they'll work up an estimate right there, review that with the customer, and then they're prepared to start the removal right then. If it's a larger job, then I'll get out there ahead of time if I can. A lot of our customers are booking same day or next day appointments, so sometimes that's not possible. But yeah, the guys, one of the main things that we get back on our Google reviews is that the guys were friendly, they were professional, they communicated well, and that's some of the key things that I strive for.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. We were talking about the home services that have to go inside the home is a whole different thing than the home services that don't necessarily have to. Absolutely. It changes how you have to hire. It changes everything. It changes how you have to interact. I mean, it becomes much more intimate.
Sure.
And on its surface, it's still, well, you're just coming in to pull this floor up, but it's like, no, we're gonna be in your home for days. We're gonna get to know you. You know, it's an intimate kind of thing. So I think the companies that miss that, that's when they start to have issues.
Yeah.
So to your point, that's exactly what you guys are doing, is treating it like, hey, this is a relationship, right? We're gonna be in your home, taking your stuff out, making sure we don't ding the walls, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids, and so I always think in terms of, would I be comfortable with this person coming into my home if I'm not there, whether it's just my wife or whether it's my wife and one or both of my kids. Right. And so that's something I always have in the back of my mind as I'm talking to a potential candidate.
Right. So. Yep, exactly, man. So from just a business operator standpoint, I got a couple questions. This one's is going to sound like a joke, but it's so serious. How have you guys dealt with the traffic in Nashville? Because I imagine, like, you guys, I mean, that's your whole gig, is you got to get there, get it, and leave, and keep to a schedule. Yeah. Is that something that's been, as of, the past couple of years, a detriment, or how have you guys worked through that?
There's not a whole lot we can do with it,
right.
Particularly starting out. As we scale and get larger, then I have more ability to create zones and have a route that maybe stays on the north side of town and another route that stays on the south side or east and west, whatever it might be. But right now, our customers, there's no rhyme or reason necessarily. It's all on their own individual needs and timing. So we could have, 4 jobs in Franklin one day on one route, and the next day we could have a job in Clarksville, a job in Lebanon, a job in Murfreesboro, and a job in Ashland City on one route.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah.
I'll try to reshuffle those a little bit so that our guys aren't spending so much time driving between either appointments or between our donation centers, our recycling partners, going back to the lot, whatever it might be. And so I'll try to do that. But sometimes it's just the way it lands, and there's not a lot I can do to move things around.
Yeah, and I think that's actually important for customers to know, homeowners to know. Sometimes they might, and I don't even know what you guys' prices are. I know I've dealt with customers who will look at a price and be confused at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the customer might forget that they're coming from Clarksville,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to Gallatin,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going down to Columbia, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it might cost $300 to remove this couch, but you're not just paying for the 15 minutes that they've been there.
Right.
There's a lot of other aspects to your job that they as the business have to pay for.
Sure.
So that's important for people to know, is that's what I mean by, like, there's so much behind the scenes of that, especially for you guys, the route planning and all that stuff.
Yeah, the trucks aren't cheap. The insurance isn't cheap. Making sure the guys are taken care of at a reasonable wage.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of things that we pay for after the fact. So whereas a moving service, at the end of the day, they have an empty truck. For us, at the end of our jobs, we may have a full truck or multiple full trucks or what have you, and so we've got to do something with those things, whether it's taking time to go get those donated with our nonprofit partners, whether that's taking them to a recycling partner, some of which we pay to get items recycled. Some things we may make pennies on the dollar in terms of recycling metal or something like that.
Right.
And then obviously some things just need to go to a landfill or some sort of disposal. And all of that takes time and in a lot of cases money as well. So yeah, there's a lot that goes behind it. So those $50 junk removal handmade yard signs that are usually on somebody else's yard sign, those do kind of a misservice in terms of educating potential customers on what all is involved with what we're doing. And we are a commercial entity, and so we're limited in where we can go in terms of we can't just go to the convenience centers and drop things off like some folks can.
Yep.
And so there's a lot that folks don't necessarily understand as to what all goes into it.
And I think that's also a really good point, man. It's like, in my opinion, homeowners would rather do business with a business like yours that has put in thought into what happens after, compared to the guy down the street that has a pickup truck and wants to make $25-$50 because he can go to the convenience dump station.
Sure.
And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's if you have commercial plates, you can't just dump into the convenience centers, right?
Right.
You have to go to the landfill. You have to pay commercial costs. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
So that's important. That's also important for people to know. But that's the right way to do it.
Right.
It's similar in our business when it comes to like a biohazard. You could have somebody come in there and throw things away illegally, but they're doing it illegally. Right. Right. You have to do things a certain way and follow certain rules.
Right.
But that's exactly why we have great companies on the platform, because exactly that.
Right.
Man, I had a question specifically about. Doesn't Junkluggers have the opportunity, or can't you like add in the service of reselling the good stuff?
Yeah, so we have what's called a remix market in
That's
our
right.
brand.
Yeah.
So think of it as a Thrift Smart or a Habitat for Humanity's Restore or Goodwill.
Right.
So we can do that. Typically, what we hear in the brand is we're looking for 5 routes running consistently, so we have enough volume coming in to justify it.
Gotcha.
Now, some of our franchisees will start out with a restore on day 1, and it could be nothing more than a glorified storage unit, and they make things available either just through Facebook Marketplace, or it may be something where one Saturday a month they open up and are available for people to come by and take a look at what they have and buy it, until they get to the volume where they can have more of a traditional retail store that's open, retail hours.
Right.
So yes, we do have that. That's meant to help out from an operational efficiency, so that at the end of the day, we don't necessarily have to try to go to a nonprofit partner or worry about the nonprofit partners are closed for the day, but we've still got great items that could be sold.
Yep.
And so that gives us the ability to unload those things at our site, but then we're still partnered with a nonprofit organization, so our customers still get the tax benefit of having those items donated.
Oh, cool.
It also allows us, if there's not a nonprofit partner that's reasonably en route from appointment A to appointment B, then we can swing by and drop it off at our store as well.
Nice.
Some of our franchisees will also give the opportunity for the nonprofit partners to essentially come shop them and get things at their location, so that also creates some operational efficiency, but also helps them with their needs. So some of our nonprofit partners on the retail side of things are selling things. Some of our nonprofit partners are in the business for getting people into housing that may be either coming off the streets, out of incarceration, out of rehab, domestic abuse situations. We never know the stories. We don't need to know the stories. But in those situations, a lot of times they don't have a facility to store items. And so that would be another advantage of us having a remix market where we can store those things and kind of have them staged. And then when they reach out and say, hey, we've got a family of 3, they need X, Y, and Z, we can say, okay, great, we've got that, we've got that, we've got that, let's set those aside. So there's a number of things that we can do when we get to a point of having a remix market as well.
That's great. Plans for that, goals for that? Do you have an expected timeline?
I would love to see one in the next 18 to 24 months.
Nice.
Last year and this year has been a little bit challenging for a lot of businesses with the economic uncertainty, and so I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So five routes full time.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So I'm hearing a ton of differentiators with
Mm-hmm.
you guys. I mean, it sounds like the entire model, just past removing junk, everything else is a differation. Can you go into some more details on anything I'm missing as far as like, how are you guys different than the next guy?
Yeah, and absolutely. Actually, it goes before the removing the junk as well. And what I mean by that, first of all, we have to have those relationships established. But because we're trying to get items donated through our nonprofit partners, then we care about the items when we take them out of the home or business. We care about them loading them up in the truck. So we're not just dragging something out, letting it, drag on the concrete and just chucking it into the back of the truck.
Right.
We're generally placing things in the truck. We're trying to stack them neatly. We're careful with people's walls, doorways, door frames, all that kind of stuff, because if we damage those things, we're likely damaging the object itself that we're trying to remove and trying to get donated.
Mm.
So we're much more careful in our approach.
It's much less of a bull in a china shop.
Exactly. And in that regard, probably more akin to moving services,
Right.
where they know at the end of the job, the items are going right back to the customer, so they want to make sure they're taken care of.
Right.
We're doing the same thing in the hopes that we can get it donated through a nonprofit partner.
Nice. The only thing you guys aren't doing, you're not going to go in there and bubble wrap and all that stuff.
No, we keep a few blankets on all of the trucks.
Nice.
So that way, if we have a number of wooden pieces or something like that, we want to keep them from getting damaged, then we can put a blanket around a couple of those to try to strategically protect all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times we may have a sofa, we may have mattresses and box springs, we may have some other things that we can kind of situate them in the truck so that
Right.
things are generally protected.
Nice.
But yeah, that's our goal.
Yeah.
And then, we've got a number of nonprofit partners. We know what each nonprofit partner likes and what they don't like. And so if we know we've got a mattress and box spring that we've removed from a customer and it's in good condition, no stains and that sort of thing, then we know who to go to. If we remove a large wooden desk, we know who not to go to. And so, it's things like that we know from experience. We also have places where we can take medical equipment, whether it's something that was in somebody's home or whether it's coming out of a clinic or a hospital or something else. And in some cases, whether the equipment's working or not, our partner is willing to accept things that are broken. We just give them a heads up and see if it's something they want. So yeah, it's developing those relationships, maintaining those relationships, having ongoing conversations with them to make sure that we're continuing to provide the things that they're interested in. Or, we've got a partner right now that their crews are off doing some other work right now. So they're like, hey, we could use more furniture. So we know if we can get more furniture, we'll try to funnel it to them to try to help them out because they're at a place where they're not getting as much furniture right now.
Right.
So yeah.
Very cool. How long did it take you to establish those partnerships and those relationships?
Minutes initially,
Yeah.
and then just consistent behavior, treating them the same way over and over,
Nice.
has really helped us solidify those relationships.
It's very symbiotic too. I mean,
Mhm.
it's you're helping them, they're helping you.
Absolutely.
Seems like a win-win.
And so, anytime I'm on the truck, if I go to a nonprofit partner that either I've not been to in a while or maybe they've had turnover and they've got some new folks, I try to stress to them that, hey, this is a partnership. So if we're pulling something off the truck that you don't want, either you've got too many already in your shop, or those items aren't moving right now, or what have you. If it's Christmas trees and it's in February and you're not interested, then let us know.
Right.
Because we don't want those items to just become a cost to that nonprofit partner because they're having to dispose of them.
Right.
That's not a long-term relationship.
You don't want to treat them like the dump.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because that's burdening them.
Absolutely.
That's great, man. What's the limit on what you guys would pick up? Is there an absolute, like, you get calls for this one thing and you just want to set the record straight and just make sure people know we do not pick up X, Y, and Z, or is it like, hey man, just give us a call, we'll figure it out?
Yeah, no. So there's really three things that we don't touch. We don't do hazardous materials. We don't do biohazardous. That's where Adroit comes in. So no body fluids, no body parts, none of that kind of stuff. And then we don't do combustibles.
Gotcha.
So generally speaking, that comes into play with either propane tanks for somebody's grill, or if we're removing a lawnmower or a gas trimmer or something like that, we just ask that the gas be emptied out of the device before we remove it.
Gotcha.
That's typically what we see on the combustible side.
Paint cans, things like that?
We do paint.
Okay.
Same as you or anybody else. If we can't get it donated or recycled somewhere, then we just have to dry it out with kitty litter or wood shavings or something like that, and then we can properly throw it away just like anybody else.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we go into homes, businesses, vacant lots, storage units, retail, restaurants, medical clinics, hospitals, other facilities, senior living communities, where if they've got something they don't want, we'll go there.
Awesome.
And then our territory is everything from Dixon to Clarksville to Lebanon to Murfreesboro and back across to Dixon.
Wow.
In the state of Tennessee, so we don't go out of state. And then if there's opportunities outside those areas in the state of Tennessee, as long as it's not impeding on another franchisee, if the pearl's worth the dive, then we'll go do it.
Gotcha.
And so we've done a number of jobs outside of that territory as well.
Gotcha. And then if they are outside that territory and there's another Junkluggers, you can just put them in contact with that Junkluggers.
Absolutely.
And then they can do that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note here, people who haven't been in a franchise or been in a business might misunderstand a franchisee versus a local independent company.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just touch on and make sure people understand that a franchisee is a local independent owner that is absolutely sole responsible for the success of that business?
Absolutely.
If it fails, it's not because of the franchise. It's the same as a local company.
Mm-hmm.
You're in charge of sourcing your own business. You're in charge of hiring your own people. You're in charge of buying your own trucks, your own uniform. Everything that you see day in and day out in your business is you. It's not the franchise.
Right.
The thing you get is maybe some back-end support, website, brand, business model, but then you got to go run it. Can you touch on that? Make sure people understand that you're local, you live in Nashville, or you live in Williamson County or wherever, and this is your business, this is your baby, and this is your day-to-day running job.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'll see people promoting, it's a local business as opposed to a franchise, and as far as I know, nearly every franchisee within our brand, and probably in many brands, even outside junk removal, the owners, they're local. They live and act and interact and engage in the community that they work in, that their business operates in, and I'm no different.
Right.
We've been here for years, decades, and our boys have gone through the same school system from day one, and I've got one that's almost out of high school now. So we're about as local as anybody gets in the Nashville area these days.
Big time.
Maybe more so. And
you're
so,
pre-flood?
Oh yeah.
You're local then.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
definitely pre-flood. And so from that standpoint, the benefit of the franchise is kind of like you said, there's a lot of back office support. There's a lot of things as an owner that I don't have to worry about coming up with graphics design, coming up with logos. They do help out with national account customers and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. But then the other thing that I have that gives me bench strength is we've got 90 plus franchisees in our system all
Nice.
throughout the US. And so if I come across a unique situation, it's not just me trying to figure it out. There's all sorts of other franchisees in some cases who have gone before and already maybe done that scenario.
Right.
And so I can rely on them and get some expertise or some tips on how to go about approaching
Which
it.
just benefits the end user, the homeowner.
Absolutely.
And I think people get confused because, you know, if you think about like a McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of franchisees that don't live in the area where the McDonald's is.
Right.
But that's like the smallest percentage of franchises.
Mm-hmm.
Those large, huge national or global franchises.
Right.
The more common ones are the ones that are far more affordable, which is why they're more common.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also smaller, and they're usually ran. It's one location, one owner,
Right.
and they live in that area.
Right.
And that's so shopping local can still be a franchise.
Absolutely.
You know, they can still support you and your business. I don't want to mess this up. O2E brands?
O2E brands?
No. So who's the brand?
Authority brands.
Authority brands.
Yeah.
Cut that out, Ken. So Authority Brands is like the second biggest brand behind Neighborly, from what I have seen.
Okay.
Is there any interaction between you and other franchises, not franchisees within Junklugger, but any other franchises within the Authority Brands that you guys interact with, or?
Not directly. There's been some efforts to try to develop some of those relationships and look for some of those opportunities,
Right.
but that hasn't really solidified yet. Junkluggers is relatively new to the Authority Brands home, so to speak. So, about a year, 13, 14 months?
Oh, cool. So when you joined, they weren't a part of Authority Brands.
That's correct.
What did you feel a difference when that happened?
We're starting to see a difference.
Nice.
So as you can imagine, if you bring in a brand into an existing company, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of integration, and it takes time to make those things happen.
Right.
But we are starting to see some benefits and some changes there as well. And Authority Brands is a phenomenal brand. They've done great things with their other brands as well, and they continue to add. I think we were the 15th brand under their umbrella, and I think they've got 17 now, maybe 18. So. Yeah, it's a good group to be a part of for certain.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that helps tremendously. I like that Authority lets the brands be brands.
Mm-hmm.
Homeowners won't even know that
Right.
Junkluggers is owned by Authority Brands.
Right.
It benefits Junkluggers and it benefits ultimately the homeowner as well.
Sure.
But what I like is you bought a Junkluggers franchise,
Right.
not an Authority brand franchise.
Correct.
And I think, without naming any, I think there's a lot of other brands that don't think that way,
Mm-hmm.
because they're sitting at their brand level and they're saying, no, we want this ecosystem of all of our brands within our brand
Mm-hmm.
to refer and give and gain business from each other, which is great in theory, but I think on the ground practice it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
it's like if you guys have a HVAC company within the Authority Brands,
Mm-hmm.
great. You're going to probably encourage people to use it, but there's very little interaction day to day
Right.
that would be natural
Right.
for you to say, hey, customer, make sure you go use our HVAC. You know, it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, it's really no different than being a part of any networking group and just having relationships with folks in those businesses,
Right.
and just saying, hey, I know a guy, and you can refer somebody. But otherwise, there's not really. I mean, we don't operate out of the same software platforms or anything like that. So it's not like once a customer is in our database, then all the other brands can easily, create an appointment for that customer because they already exist or anything like that. So
they're not getting marketed to by other brands.
No. So then it's really more just a connection point. So we've got a pool company is one of the brands within Authority Brands.
ASP?
Yes.
Yep.
And so they're not going to be, regularly referring business to us as a result of putting in a pool for a company, for a homeowner. Right. But they may happen to know that those folks have some things that they need to get rid of. Maybe they've just bought the house and some things came with the house that they didn't want to come with the house, and they're just in the process of making everything their own. And so they may reach out to us and give us a call, or they may let the homeowner know, hey, you can reach out to somebody at Junkluggers. But that's really no different than any other relationship that exists. It's not really a result of being under the Authority Brands umbrella.
Right, and that's, I think the other brands might not necessarily have. It's been a while since they've been on the ground, and it's like if you use that example where ASP's put in a swimming pool, and Authority Brands would like for that natural referral to happen. What they're relying on is a employee to think like an owner, because it's very rare that the owner's on every single job all the time.
Right.
If he is, then it's probably not a very successful business, because they need more business than that.
Right.
So what you're asking is the guy who's trying to do the job correctly to then think like you, the business owner, and be like,
right,
if you have junk, you should, it just doesn't add up.
right,
And I think that I've seen other brands think that was going to be the case. But if you've been on the ground more than 2 seconds, you start to realize that that's kind of a failing idea and task. Makes it difficult.
Hopefully what you're getting as a part of being attached to a franchise and being attached to a franchise that's a part of an umbrella group like Authority Brands is you're seeing the benefits in the software platforms. You're seeing the benefits in go-to-market and how do we market and how do we advertise, how do we attract customers. You're getting some buying power on some of your back-end services or your products and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So hopefully you're seeing those sorts of things, but you're exactly right. Beyond that, you're not going to see a lot of strong connections between the different brands, except maybe at the owner level, and that's about it.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I think all of that just only benefits the homeowner at the end of the day. It's like, you can tell, and there's nothing wrong with a small, local, independent business, but there's issues that come with that. And I know from experience, right? There's issues that come with not having systems in place, not having the answers at your fingertips, not having 90 other franchisees that you can say, hey, has anybody run into this? Right? And then you can get some really good advice.
Right.
I think what benefits the homeowner in that situation is you're probably not going to have many of those issues in dealing with a brand that's not only established, but also under an established brand. It really just positively benefits the entire ecosystem or the chain of process, right? Authority, Junkluggers, and the homeowner. Right. And that's a win-win-win in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Any other things you want to really highlight for the customer when thinking about using you guys versus a different company, or anything like that you want to highlight specifically to the customer?
Yeah, we've got some green guarantees that our customers really like, and the one that probably resonates the most is our price assurance. So this is the way I like to do things, but the brand was already embracing this, which is great, and part of the reason that I aligned well with Junkluggers. But we want to treat people the way that we would like to be treated. And so from that standpoint, when we get on site and we do an estimate, once we've done that estimate, as long as the customer doesn't change scope, which is perfectly fine, we just revise the estimate. But as long as they don't change scope, we don't ever charge more than what we've estimated. So it's on us to do a good estimate.
Oh, cool.
So if we estimate half a truck and it ends up being 5/8 of a truck, we're only going to charge the customer for half a truck. On the flip side, if we estimated half a truck and it ends up being 3/8 of a truck, then we'll adjust that price down according to what we actually did, because it doesn't make sense to charge them based on an estimate if we didn't actually do that work. And so either way, we're always going to err in favor of the customer. Now, if they decided, oh yeah, we need you to take X, Y, and Z, then great. We just revise the estimate, let them know what the incremental cost is for that, make sure they're good with it. And if they are, then great. We just roll that in and continue, doing what we're doing, and that's not a problem.
That's a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
So basically what that boils down to, unless the scope changes, meaning, hey, I want you to also take this mattress, the price won't change.
Correct.
For the worse. It could change for the better for the homeowner.
Absolutely, yeah.
But unless the scope changes, you guys have estimated, you're confident in your estimate.
We want, at the end of the transaction, if there's a surprise for the customer, we always want that to be a pleasant surprise, not an unpleasant surprise.
That's good.
So yeah, that's the way we operate.
Nice. What's one piece of advice if you're thinking about you 5, 6, 7 years ago, the guy who's sitting in corporate America right now, who's thinking like, man, I really think I want to try this. What's your one piece of advice to that person right now?
That's a good question. I think probably the key for me is make sure that it's something that you can enjoy doing, and make sure that you talk to enough folks about either that industry or about that brand or about running a business, so that you're going in kind of with eyes wide open and you have realistic expectations.
Oh, that is good advice. That is good advice. I wish I would have heard that advice. I
Yeah.
might have made some different decisions. Yeah, I think knowing, and my advice there is, if you're going into a franchise, talk to people outside that franchise within that industry. So you can make sure not only do you understand the franchise, because you're going to get all of that from them,
Right.
but you can understand the goods and the bads of the industry.
Sure.
And if you live with those goods and bads, you're good. I also think it's, to your point, expectation management on that is everything. But I think even a little deeper is success expectation management. So understanding what life looks like successfully in that industry.
Right.
If you like that, and go for that.
Right.
So what I mean is, like in restoration, that means you have crews going 7 days a week. You're probably middle of the night doing stuff. If that looks appealing to you,
Yeah.
because that's what success is, then go do it.
Absolutely.
But if you're like, I don't want to take calls in the middle of the night, I don't want to have to work on Saturdays, then maybe pick a different industry.
There's a reason I did not go into the restaurant industry. I did not want to work nights and weekends.
Right.
I've got a buddy that owns several ServPro franchises. So yeah, no, that's exactly correct. You need to have an idea of what does that industry require of you. Now for us, and one of the things that Junkluggers allows is I don't have to operate on Sundays. That's a personal decision that I did. I was not going to go into anything that I had to operate on Sundays.
Right.
I don't want to operate on Sundays. I don't want my folks to have to feel like they have to operate on Sundays. And so from that standpoint, Junkluggers supports that. But to your point, in restoration, there's probably no brand that allows you to not operate 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There's other industries that may work, that may not work. So yeah, understanding kind of what your values are and what your interests are, or what your interests are not.
Yep.
That's going to be key in deciding a business that's going to be a good fit for you.
I completely agree, and I think the other thing is like, and you said it perfectly, which is just see what you like. But what I like about the way you put that is you don't have to have this like immense passion for the thing. You don't have to have this immense passion for removing junk or for cleaning mold, right? It'd be kind of weird if you did. Yeah, it's like a strange thing to really love to do. I just love to move furniture.
Right.
Some people might, whatever. Not my thing, not many people's thing.
Sure.
I think what is important for people to hear who's in that position right now, thinking about starting a business, thinking about going into that, is you don't have to have this immense passion for the actual industry. I think where the passion lies is in building a successful company, building a team, building somewhere people want to work, making customers happy, having a company you can be proud of. All those things, you got to do the job great.
Right.
But I think the passion can be found within all of that.
Right.
You know, I think the passion conversation most of the time can defer people from starting a business. Because they go, well, I don't love cleaning mold. I don't love removing furniture. I'm not going to do that. But it's, I just like to make a point is most days in business are so hard that you're not going to have this like, oh, every day is perfect. Every day is great. I love it. And it's like, if you can find these little pieces of the puzzle you do love or you do like to do or you do find passion in, then you got to really, really grab onto that.
Absolutely. There's always going to be things associated with any business, with any job that we're not going to like, we're not going to want to do. But we're just going to have to suck it up and do them.
That's right.
But I do think there needs to be some passion for some aspect of what you're doing. So case in point, my wife was an auditor at one point when we first got out of grad school. She was able to associate with the fact that she's helping to try to protect the interest of the investors, the business owners, that sort of thing. That was a little bit too arm's length removed for her. In my industry, it's okay if you're not excited about removing junk, but maybe you're at least interested in helping others by getting those items donated, or maybe you're more of a environmentally conscious type person, and so maybe the recycling side of it is more of interest to you than necessarily getting things to our nonprofit partners.
Right.
For us, it always feels good when we know we're able to help people directly. So taking things to a retail nonprofit is nice, and especially when the staff there appreciates it and is excited about it. But taking things directly to the individual or family that can benefit from those items, always much more rewarding for us.
Dude, absolutely.
Those sorts of things are what help to make it much more exciting and much more fulfilling and rewarding, even if you're not necessarily excited about the task at hand, what you're actually hired to do.
That's exactly how we started the conversation too. You said I got in this because I wanted to help people. I like helping people, and that because that has nothing to do with removing furniture, removing junk.
No.
But that's why you have a successful company. That's why people like to use your services. That's why people like to work for you, is because it starts with this thing, and the avenue, or like the medium, is removing the junk.
Right.
The medium to helping people in this situation is removing the junk. And again, man, this is great because this is exactly what we're trying to prove. Is these businesses are so much more than what's on the surface.
Right.
And it's very rare that somebody will take the time to try to figure that out. But I think it's important to share and push to as many people as possible.
Sure.
Not only for your potential customers, but also for potential people who want to own a business. You know, that's how you do it right. Anything else?
Yeah, another thing about our industry, most of our customers are calling us the day after they needed us. There's not a lot of forethought or planning for a lot of our customers. But that being said, we can often support same day or next day removals, Monday through Saturday. So a lot of the homeowners, they're in a pinch. Either they've got new furniture coming and they finally just found out it's going to be arriving on Thursday, and they've got to get the other stuff gone. Maybe something's come up and they've got to relocate in a hurry, and so they're being moved for a job or whatever it might be. So those are things that we can get in and help out quickly. Maybe it's just dealing with a closing and the buyer has decided, no, I don't want those items anymore. You need to get those removed before we can go to closing.
Nice.
We've cleaned out entire houses in a matter of a day or two. And so those are things where we can shine as well. And also, again, where the customer is already overwhelmed with everything else they've got going on, that's something we can take off their headache and manage that for them, and they don't have to worry about it.
Nice. That's super convenient. Tough on you as a business, but if it makes the homeowner happy, then that's what it's about. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, dude, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabe.
Appreciate your time.